Hey, welcome back. Secret House Against the World. I don't know if it's useful for us to say Tokyo, but I guess with some of the other content I do, it's fine to say Tokyo. It's
why not?
kind of unimportant. But yeah, we're here in Tokyo. It's me and Jet today. We've been kind of on, I don't know. I feel like that's mostly my fault. Recording.
Well, Wednesday we were supposed to record, and I stayed up too late, and I was like, "There's no way I'm getting up and making out here before work and all that shit." So.
Part of me also hates to be like, "Yo, let's record every weekend." You know what I mean? It's like I know it's difficult for you guys because you guys have to travel here, especially Spade lives out away, you know. But yeah. So here's some content though. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about.
Open Mic Eagle.
Yeah. Now, I've seen it called a tape called Component System with the Auto Reverse, but then it's also just called Component System with the Auto Reverse. You know, I'm not sure which is right, but it's supposed to play like a tape, obviously with an auto reverse. You know, tape automatically reverses. So we'll call it that. It's a 14-song album, 38 minutes. I think this is the first. It's been like 2 years since Anime Trauma and Divorce.
Really?
I think so. I think that came out in 2020. And so, yeah, this is a return to form for him. Well, I don't know if I can call it a return to form. Let's start by discussing our thoughts on Open Mic Eagle, his career, and him as an artist before we talk about the actual album. Since I like to do that, especially with an artist of Open Mic Eagle's caliber, who has been in the and been in the public eye in the presence of underground hip hop heads for well over 10 years. I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan of him, and I think that he's had an incredible rise over the last decade. One of the best. Like him and Billy Woods are it's phenomenal to see underground independent artists reaching such heights with Open Mic Eagle, even being on Comedy Central and working with, a variety of like really famous MCs, so yeah, he's dope. I think that I know that I first got into actually listening to him. I heard about him before, but I met him at South by Southwest in maybe like 2010. What? And he sold me Unapologetic Art Rap, which had just come out, I think, and then another EP which is really dope and it has like the Financial Crisis song on it. Okay, before it was remixed. And so yeah, man, I've been a huge fan of him. He was quite personable and lovely. I think Dark Comedy is one of my favorite albums of the last decade, or that decade, the 10s.
Sure, yeah.
I think that album's great, and I've been a huge fan of his for a long time. How about you?
Yeah, I've been a fan since about Dark Comedy. Yeah, I'm also a fan of just like, Hellfire Club, Rory, Bus Driver, that whole scene, like all of those cats. So I've been into that kind of music for a while. Dark Comedy was when I jumped on.
Even that was like a glow up for him. Like who knew that like Hannibal Buress was like an old homie and shit. That was before Hannibal Buress dropped like the Bill Cosby shit. It blew up into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think, he's one of the best MCs out there. I have kind of appreciated and had very mixed feelings, but mostly positive, I would say, towards this kind of path he's taking, this kind of evolution that he's kind of gone in. He's more of a funny guy, and he's still funny, but there's definitely like
he's like an everyman.
He's an everyman, and he's like
but
like
of a specific
local
time
hero
period,
type,
like an age group. Yeah,
everyone,
I think so.
Is someone you want to root for. And there's definitely like, I think he's always had that darkness, of course, but I think it's something that's become more prevalent and like a little more, his music's become more personal. It's become a little more tortured, as it were. This is a guy who's probably suffered a lot over the last...
He's like my same age group, and we're going through it. You know what I mean? That's one thing I've always liked about him too. There's an authenticity there and an openness and a vulnerableness, but also an idiosyncratic approach to rhyming and kind of a quirky, whimsical type of approach.
He's fun.
He's a fun dude. He seems like he's also very smart. Like he had a song in that album, the Animal Joint. But anyway, with this Korzybski's Lament or whatever, where he's talking about general semantics, like he's extremely cool to me, and it's like his fandom of the guys that we both grew up on. Like, he's a huge Bus Driver fan, or maybe I don't know about their working relationship these days. I haven't seen them collab in quite a long time or any interactions, but I'm not an internet person. But that whole camp that he came from, you know, the next generation of Project Blodians, like, you know, they're doing different things. Dumbfounded has a podcast. Open Mike Eagles podcast is Secret Skin was phenomenal back when he was doing that, and I think it just made a return. But
I'm not familiar. I'm not.
Secret Skin was dope, man. He used to get interviews with a lot of artists that were, you know, underground independent type of guys. Like, you know, he's got an Aesop Rock interview, like a long form Aesop Rock interview. You know, there's Rory, there's all the homies on there. There's even like Y from Anticon. He has an appreciation for that. And but he's got his new podcast, What Had Happened Was, which is, I think, one of the most delightful, illest insights into the kind of actual oral history of so many things that happen in hip hop. You know, he had LP on there. He had Prince Paul, Dante Ross. He's phenomenal, man. He's kind of punctuated his mark as like one of underground hip hop's kind of like biggest presence and like most involved in the culture and champion of hip hop culture. And I think he was a Four Element guy too, you know, but it's too late to lionize those Four Elements nowadays. But yeah, old man.
But he's also, you know, just like this relatable figure, and I think that's something that works really well for him. He doesn't have that air of like intangibility that certain rappers in that scene do. You know, and I don't mean that as a slight against like Aesop Rock or Rory or any of those guys who, you know, kind of play this, you know, almost like ethereal level rhymer who can just like rap rings, you know. Open Mike Eagles always seemed like a regular ass dude who just happens to be real good at rapping. And you know, when I first met him, I was just like, oh, peace. And he was just like, hey man, how you doing? And he's like, what's your rap name? And I was like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, like it was rap shit. We were at an Anticon show actually. Him and No Can Do showed up at like, I think it was a I forget who it was. Sun Ra. It was somebody in the Antibon camp, but it wasn't like Dose and them. It was somebody else. It might have been like, I don't know. Anyways, man, let's get into the album component system with the auto reverse. Oh, okay. So I should say before we get into this that his last project, Anime, Trauma, and Divorce, didn't hit for me almost at all. Perhaps it was the time, perhaps it was the music, perhaps it was a distance growing between, you know, the art that he wanted to make and kind of what I was into listening to. But I can't really remember any songs on that album, like a title, except for like there was like a JoJo's. I'm a Joe Star.
Yeah, and I was just like, for some reason, it wasn't hitting for me. And even though I didn't like the music, he's one of those artists is like, regardless if I like his music anymore, I'm still going to support him and check out all of his projects because I appreciate him as a person, as an authentic person. So
it's interesting you say that, because I really do also appreciate this album, and this album has made me appreciate the previous one because they're so different.
Word. That's
like,
true.
They're very, very different records for, you know, back-to-back releases, and there are similarities, but you know, Anime, Trauma, and Divorce is very kind of down in the dumps in a lot of ways. It's very introspective.
It's like an open wound.
It's an open wound. He's very confessional on there. I really liked some of the sort of quieter, or like more mid-tempo tracks on there. You know, Death Parade from near the beginning of the album, where he's mostly singing.
Oh, yeah.
Head ass
I gotta
Shinji,
go back and
like,
listen to
Idiot
it.
Shinji, whatever. Like, you know, he's got that Evangelion and JoJo like lens that comes in and out, which is kind of fun. I think it kind of fits him as a person as well as a fan of those
You've
shows.
been pushing me to like get more into Evangelion, but I need to do it.
Evangelion's amazing. We shouldn't talk about it on here because hip hop podcast, but but it was a good time.
I think I do need to go back and re-listen to it, because sometimes albums grow on you like that. You know what I mean? But this one, I actually really enjoyed this album, and it's probably the one that I've enjoyed the most since Dark Comedy, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but like, it's got 3 fucking Riff Napalm verses, and for those that don't know, Riff Napalm, I guess he goes by Still Riff now. I mean, like, I've loved that guy's music since I heard about him on like the Mestizo Galapagos 4 shit 20 years ago or whatever. But it's good to see him back. The features on this are dope. The production choices are dope. There's an interesting variety on this this album that's really dope. And I do kind of like that we've got 2 albums this year by great artists that are kind of supposed to be this throwback to a kind of mixtape approach with Death Fame from Quelle Chris and Open Mic on this. And the album even has production by Quelle. So I mean, like, yo, this album, I really, really like it. One of the things that's strange is that my favorite songs on this are the ones that were released well before the album.
Oh, so yeah,
I'll Fight You.
I'll Fight You in the mixed
the Doom for Doom joint,
Doom, multi-game arcade cabinet.
And like I really, really like those tracks, and they probably are the ones that I've played the most. But yo, this album, the only thing that misses for me on this album are the first 2 tracks, and the second track is kind of just like a quick intro. Anyways. But the first one, I'm just like, I don't know if to start the album off, it just kind of like, I was like, all right, let's see where he's going on this.
I dig the first track. Just the weird production. I know Spade, if he were here, would be very quick to complain about the mixing, and I kind of agree with him. It's a little grating on the ears. There's like a bit of, I don't know if it's clipping,
tinny?
but there's like a tinny, there's the the percussion kind of.
I didn't pick up on that as much as you guys did, but I also am not a person who has like a really refined ear to pick up those type of things.
Sure.
Spade's a phenomenal producer engineer when it comes to those type of things, and for me, I was just like, okay, like, so this track sound lo-fi to be lo-fi, but yeah, it's not as bad as like that Aesop album that came out, Spirit World Field Guide, where it's like I can barely listen to that shit because it's just grating on the ears. This is not that.
Ace obviously did that himself, like the production on that one, where we've got a whole like host of producers on here. Massive props to Illingsworth, has my favorite beat on here.
The Doom joint?
The multi-game arcade cabinet.
Okay, that's dope too. Yeah.
It starts off with that almost. I thought it was going to be like Sam I Am or someone when I first heard it. It's got that brain feeder, like LA, early mid 2000s kind of thing going on. Then it turns a little more boom bap, and then it goes into the credits interlude afterwards with Serengeti's verse.
Shout out to Getty King.
Flips it kind of, and then that was dope to me. Illingsworth, for someone who I was not familiar with prior to the review of the
Homeboy Sandman shit,
Sandman, like
he's moved up for you, yeah.
Yeah, he's moved up for me. He's
super ill. He's a little bit hit or miss for me, but man, I love that Doom beat and the way that Open Mike Eagle goes off, just for his adoration for Doom. It's something that resonates for me because I was a high school kid that kind of grew up on that. I think I remember maybe a year or two or a grade behind Open Mic, but like when Dead Bent, like the original shit dropped, we had it like on tape, and next thing like we got all like Operation Doomsday from, I don't know, Soul Seeker, whatever the fuck we were using way back then, 2000. But yeah, man, I love the production on a lot of these tracks. The Diamond D beat on I'll Fight You, Quelle Chris on 79th and Stony Island it kind of feels like something that could be on Death Fame, to be honest with you. And I really like how introspective, or what basically, what Mike has to offer lyrically on that. I don't care that much for the beat on Burner Account, but Crenshaw on Homeland by Diamond D again. The Child Actor joint, I told you, sounded kind of like a old Flying Lotus joint. Which song was that I was talking about?
Child Actor also produced the first track, if I remember correctly. The song with the secret name.
Oh no, is it Peak Lockdown?
Peak Lockdown Raps?
No, that's not it.
That's not it.
But one of those joints, I Retired Then I Changed My Mind, is the one it feels like 2010 Fly Low type of shit. But I love the production on this, and I say all that without even getting into kind of what Open Mike Eagle was doing on this album vocally.
Sure. Like lyrically, yeah.
And
shouts out to all the features on there. They're all pretty great.
I feel like I'm rambling and jumping from too many things to things, but
okay. No, let's
bring me back in.
All right,
bring me back in. What are we talking about?
We played with the idea of doing the good, bad, and ugly. So I guess the only real criticism I have of this record is that it didn't feel all too cohesive for me. I know he's going for the tape format, so there is a degree of like mixtape-ishness to it. I feel like it's a little all over the place sonically, maybe because of this variety of producers and different features on there. Maybe, I don't know if like sequencing could have fixed that. I don't think there's really any problem with the sequencing.
I really do I feel like the Mad Lib joint kind of sticks out a little bit, and the Burner Account joint with Arm & Hammer stick out. in the kind of cohesiveness that he's trying to create here. And I do appreciate that there's this variety to the mixtape, but those tracks kind of just, I don't know, they stick out for me a little bit.
Kind of there,
yeah. I mean, they're not bad songs or bad beats,
are good too.
But yeah, I do think that the features are really good. The production on the album is really good. The features are really good. Mike's writing is on some of these tracks is really, really dope. There's one of my favorite verses on this album is Kites, right? So Kites is basically all of a kite.
Still Riff goes crazy on that track.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite verses on the album. But a kite, when you're in prison or when you're in jail, is like you make a letter and then it's this kite, you throw it out, somebody catches it, they throw it out and get it to where it needs to be. And on that track they take this approach of just kind of a concept track approach where they're all writing these letters. And Video Dave, who I'm not familiar with, comes hard, but Still Riff on that shit is so dope.
Posthumous kind of.
Right. He's like, and after thus tell my kids the following exactly, my offspring, the government was after me. So after me, the work I have begun, you have been burdened to accomplish. God speed you, I shall observe your progress. So dope, man. I would love to have a new, like a not old tracks that he made in 2018, but like a new project from Still Riff, from Riff Napalm. Just put it out. I'll buy it. I'll buy it on vinyl. I promise. I've been a huge champion of him for decades now. That is one of my favorite verses. Aesop Rock, I'm a huge fan. No Known Syndrome, like that verse is really dope on the CD only bonus track.
Sure, yeah.
And I gotta give props to Crenshaw and Homeland, as well as the Crenshaw and Homeland is really dope. But what is the joint where he's running down like his
just quickly to pause on that track?
Kites or
Crenshaw and Homeland.
Okay.
And this is me showing my ignorance towards like American geography and stuff like that. I figured that and 79th and Stony Island were supposed to be like two components, Chicago
and
LA.
Los Angeles, right?
And I like Open Mike Eagle is from Chicago, right? He's from Chicago, but obviously he's been in LA for the best part of like 20
2
years
decades now. Yeah.
And there's a sort of
I like that dichotomy. Well, I think he's telling two different stories on that. He kind of gives on 79th and Stony Island. It kind of is him talking about like where he was at. It's a lot of who he is and how he became to who he was. And I'm looking at my notes here, and I don't actually have what I thought the track was about. I just have all these lines from him. Like, I stay woke, I don't sleep great, I'm in a weird place creatively, dream I was hung from a tree. But those two tracks are really good. And also, like, which is the one where he's going through an account of kind of his life and his like recalling, is it Peak Lockdown Raps?
Yeah.
Where he's talking about like, no, it's not Peak Lockdown Raps. I should have made better notes.
Peak Lockdown Raps is it's a slower track on there, but that was one of my favorite tracks on the album, like in terms of him just getting off.
I like that too. The one I was thinking about, is I Retired Then I Changed My Mind, where he gives a rundown on his career. And basically, if you don't know Open Mike Eagle, you could listen to that track and kind of get a solid feeling of like he created this album called Unapologetic Art Rap, question for
which
it.
is something he has been like not apologizing for, but certainly like incredulous towards over the last couple of albums. Like there's a lot of that on Anime Trauma and Divorce as well, where it's like, this like art rap thing against the or in juxtaposition to just this like real person who's going through some shit. Which I think is neat. It's very postmodern. It is kind of artsy in its own way, but yeah,
I quite enjoy the kind of variety of approaches that he takes to his writing on this album, and those tracks are ones where I go, and it's not like I listen to it and be like, damn, this is a jam I need to replay, but it is as a piece of art and something to just contemplate and take into the consideration with the canon of his music, I think this album is really strong. Like I might have to rank this towards the top 5 of his discography. I think, like, for me, I just really enjoy this album. It hits perfectly. It feels kind of like it should have come out earlier in the year, just in terms of kind of the ambiance that it kind of makes for me. It feels more like a spring or a summer album.
Boom-bappy, kind of upbeat, fun, summery, fun record. Again, very much in contrast to the previous album, which also came out in October of 2020. I looked it up when you mentioned 2020. I think I like that one more.
Is that right?
I think I like Anime Trauma and Divorce more
than
this
one. I
gotta go back.
The
only thing that I think this album does get, like, a lot better than Anime Trauma and Divorce is, like, as someone who's not hugely knowledgeable about anime, the framing is definitely toned down. There's some, like, memeing on here.
Oh yeah, Who Among Us is Mega
Sus, like all that stuff. You know, it's kind of like, okay, 40-year-old guy, but he's still with it. He's having fun. But I do appreciate that kind of earnestness and the almost like funerary feel of that previous record. Whereas this one, it's a little more straightforwardly boom bap. And it's very, they're very night and day in that respect, which is something I really appreciate about both records, especially in light of having listened to the other now.
Yeah, I like how Open Mike can frame like social topics and how he feels about things without being preachy. A lot of the things that in his approach to his socioeconomic system or like his political tendency or how he feels about
socialist looking for a tax break.
Yeah, like and how he recounts on his career. He has a line, I saw a billboard of myself from my bedroom right above the chicken joint. Gladwell would have bet that this was the tipping point. Like I like where he's at right now, and I hope that he's healthy. It's one of the good things about the album. I walked away from it feeling like, man, this is like after COVID and all the shit that all of us have been through all around the world, even though shit is getting kind of bad here for us with the yen in Japan and in America still, and we're not out of it in any regard. I listened to this album and I felt like, damn, Open Mike, to me, I was like, damn, maybe he was never gone, but I didn't listen to like the songs from the New Negroes. I didn't watch the show because I don't have cable, you know what I mean? And I just didn't see it. But like for me, it felt like, oh, okay, I'm reconnecting with Open Mike on this. And maybe that's why I'm so enthusiastic about how dope it is, because I feel like, oh man, Mike is back, which is not a thing to say, but that's how I feel.
Your history with the genre and that scene and like the people involved in it, this is definitely a record for people like you who are like who have been a part of that culture and that movement. People who were getting mixtapes off of him, 15 years ago. And I think you hear that on here. Like there is a lovingness, I think, towards hip hop as he sees it.
It's one thing that I've always appreciated about him too. One thing that I did find funny is that, and I don't know if this has been a part of Mike's writing throughout his career, but one thing that really stood out to me on this album is how many like similes he uses. There he says, this like this so many times on the album, and it wasn't something that was like, damn, this fool is like, he lost a touch in rapping, because on other tracks I think he goes off like I'll fight you, I love it, but
there's also like a cipherishness, that's not a word, but it feels like a cipher in places, with the features and stuff like that. I think Rap Ferreira like kind of bodies everybody on his feature, but it doesn't feel like, oh, and now here's this special guest. It does feel like, 6
let's
friends
just all
like
rap
coming
really
together
dope and say dope
good
shit together.
That like I'm X like Y thing,
I love
which
it,
is something I'm not normally a fan of in a lot of rap. Almost feels like a filler bar in a freestyle with some friends, where you just like sneak that in there to give yourself a moment to reset.
It's how you reset your freestyle,
exactly.
Like when I'm on the mic, it's just how you reset and find a new scheme.
I get it. Like,
but he's very he's very funny on it. I've got a few of my favorites here, if you don't mind me rifling off some of them.
Go ahead, show off.
My grandma was half asshole and half Choctaw. We connected like Black Bolt and Lockjaw. I got a text, my head spun like a Beyblade. You know Black Bolt and Lockjaw, yeah?
I do not.
Okay, the Inhumans, Black Bolt, Black
I'm not a comics
Boltagon,
guy. Yeah.
Lockjaw's the teleporting gigantic like bulldog.
Sure.
Yeah, but but also like Black Bolt doesn't speak. Lockjaw, I don't know. It could be a couple of different things. He said, my mind chews like a Rottweiler, and then he's got sit on your back like Scott Steiner. There's a few. Hold on. My head hard like the top of a pot pie. Handing my notes like I'm literally Red Man. Let's see what else. We big as a beanpole. I broke it down like a foot fracture. I just there was so many more. I only wrote these down on Tuesday night. I was making my notes because I thought we record Wednesday.
Sure, yeah.
And after that, I stopped listening to this album to give some time to the Mavi. And so I didn't get to write down all of the like similes that I like, but there's quite a few and they're fun. And I like that. But there is a lot on this. I would the over under. I would say that there are over 17 like similes on this. I don't know. Comment. Comment. But no, I love fucking Open Mike Eagle, man.
Do the homework for us.
Yeah, I really like this. What are your favorite beats on this?
Multi-game arcade cabinet is probably my favorite on there. The Illingsworth.
Yeah.
I really and credits interlude obviously is the second part of that. Peak Lockdown vibes.
Oh, if I
retired,
say, the credits interlude is dope too. You know, Eddie is kind of just talking about the credits. Like, good to see Rory. Yeah.
Retired, changed my mind. I'll fight you.
Okay, I've got like I love For Doom. That Illingworth beat is just, since I heard it right after, a few weeks after Doom died or months or whatever it was, those are like my two favorite Doom homages. Homages to Doom is Open Mics and then Aesop and Homeboy Sandman. But that beat is just, I was so happy to get it on Spotify so I could just loop it. You know what I mean? So I like that one a lot. I like I'll Fight You. Shout out to Diamond D. Really dope to see. I mean, he's a legend. You're talking about digging in the crates. Like, it's dope to see Diamond D on like a really dope piece of music. I haven't followed him, so he might have been doing it dope the whole time, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't been following DITC in a long time.
Right.
So,
I mean, who does except for like Open Mic? It's hard to say, but I like that one a lot. I also like 79th, and Kites as well. Which Kites was produced by a cat named Quest One, who Quest spelled with a K. I don't know who that is, but I like that joint. And I think that's kind of my top four. And verses wise, I like the second verse on I'll Fight You. I like Riff's verse. I like Rory's verse. I like Aesop's verse. I like Peak Lockdown raps. Everything he does on that. But yeah, man, I love this. I love this album. And I say that not meaning that I give it a perfect 10, but I love this album as if like it's one that I'll keep going back to for reasons and just enjoy it for longer than our typical, 2-week shelf life of an album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this will end up on my favorite albums of the year because we've had such a strong year with a lot of really phenomenal releases. But if it does, I mean, that's because I fucking like what Open Mike Eagle does. And I think that if you're a fan of his music, this should kind of meet the criteria that you look for in all of his past albums. He pulls it together really well.
Yeah, I could see this being on the lower end of my top 10 albums of the year, especially in terms of rap stuff. I dig it a lot. I think I do prefer the more kind of soulful, introspective version of Open Mike Eagle that you saw on the previous album. Maybe controversial. I like it when he sings, which there's not as much of that on here.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll Fight You is one of the main examples of that. But yeah, this is an album I had a lot of fun with, and he's still got it. And I can't wait for what happens next.
Yeah, I like Brick Body Kids Still Daydream, which came out in 2017. Like that album was really good, and I thought what he did conceptually and like what he was talking about was really good. But it didn't stick for me like this one did. I'm going back, I'm looking at his albums right now, and it's like, okay. Animal Hospital is one of my favorites. Rappers Will Die of Natural Causes. Hella Personal Film Festival was really good too. But yeah, this has got to be towards the top of my shit. Oh, that EP I was talking about was Another Roadside Attraction. I got that and Unapologetic Art Rap from him in 2010. Bet.
What?
Is that the secret house?
Yeah,
That's
secret
the secret
house.
house. This might have been long. We appreciate you guys sticking around with us. I love to see the comments, especially old boy who was like, we should have more followers. I agree with you completely and wholeheartedly. Share us with the homies. I don't know, maybe post us on Reddit or some shit if you find it useful. Like, subscribe, and man, we get more content. I'll have more content out. I'm trying to get motivated. I've been sober for 28 days.
Congratulations.
More stuff's happening.
Yeah, that's a month coming. Yeah. Like it's a lunar cycle.
Yeah, man. It's kind of boring.
I'm hungover right now.
Yeah. Word. Yeah. Secret house.
Secret house. Fuck the alt-right.
Israel is an apartheid state.